Because nobody wants to be involved in any more Middle East war. If they're not in the Middle East, they'll stay out.
Charge your gun! Oh, right!
Well, hello there, my friends. Rafi from the Endgame Investor, and this week's Silver Report, we're going to cover what is going on with the war between Israel and Iran, of which I am in the middle of, and there could be a siren at any point while I'm recording this. There was a siren a few minutes ago. There was a little toy airplane that was coming and trying to blow things up, but then it got shot down by the Iron Dome, whatever the system is.
What's that?
War were declared.
And the question I want to deal with is, will the movement of American forces, they haven't joined the war yet, and hopefully they will not join the war. You should be very clear. I should be very clear that I'm very against the United States joining any war here. This is not their fight. They can't afford it, and it would be very bad and lead us closer to World War III, which we are all trying to avoid. This is our fight, our business. We have to do what we have to do, and America should not be involved in any way. But as I was saying, will the movement of American forces away from bases around Iran in fear that they might retaliate for whatever it is that America might do, will this itself lead to a acceleration of the X date when the Treasury runs out of money? And my conclusion is no. And I crunched the numbers thanks to Grok. I was lazy and I asked artificial intelligence. Corporate tax day has come and gone. There was an influx of cash into the Treasury. It brought it up to a high watermark of about $446 billion. And we are on our way down again, which means we have about between 7 and 9 weeks before the Treasury runs out of cash and the debt ceiling has to be raised. Whereas for those who believe that the war between Israel and Iran might lead to World War III, two indications that it will not. First of all, the shekel is at its strongest level since the beginning of 2023, which signals that markets believe that Israel is winning, whatever exactly that means, I don't know. But if they thought that Israel was losing, the shekel would go down, and it isn't. And yes, I know the shekel is fake, but so is the dollar, and it will all go away. All currencies will collapse, including the shekel, because the shekel is just a dollar derivative. But in the meantime, it's going up in the current fiat system.
You guys take shekels? Just got back from a trip to Israel. All I got is a fistful of shekels.
We're going to talk about Japanese bonds. We're going to talk about Japanese core inflation, highest since 1982. And gold is in a correction. It's been in a correction for the past 4-5 weeks. And you should know that since the rally began in late 2023, the majority of the time gold has been in a correction since that time. Even in 1979, gold was in a correction. The majority of that year, the rallies were shorter comparatively. In 1979, of course, was the moonshot of gold to 872 by January 21st, 1980, and the near collapse of the entire fiat system. So gold corrections are totally normal, even in hyperinflationary times. But if you look at the pattern, the times for the corrections are getting shorter, and the times for the rallies are getting longer as this continues on. And before we get into the slides, this week's Silver Report is brought to you by Quinney Silver, symbol KOOYF in the US and symbol KTN in Canada. Thank you for sponsoring this Silver Report. News was released on June 17th, 3 days ago. Quinney Silver delivers maiden resource estimate of 54 million ounces at 284 grams per ton silver, highlighting high-grade potential at Columba project. This is the first step towards offloading this resource to a larger mining company. There has to be a preliminary economic assessment before companies get potentially interested in buying this asset, but this is the first major step. Within the next 12 months, there will be more developments. Quinney is pleased to announce the completion of the maiden mineral resource estimate of its Columba silver project located in Chihuahua, Mexico. This milestone represents a major step forward in advancing Columba project as a significant silver exploration target. Much of the drilling is wide-spaced, and the company intends to expand and infill known materialized zones with ongoing work. The quote from James McDonald, CEO, who I had an interview with on the channel, link in the description below for those who want to check out more details on this news. The maiden resource estimate of 54 million ounces at an excellent grade of 284 grams per ton silver is just the beginning. It is a starting point of 54 million ounces that sets Quinney up very well to achieve its objective of defining an economic resource in Columba. If silver continues its rally, we should say Kootenay along with other miners and explorers going higher. I own Kootenay Silver. If you are interested, check this news out, check the company out, and thank you for sponsoring this video. First, an update on where the Treasury's cash pile is. We know that the debt ceiling has not been raised, so whatever is in the Treasury's account is the last amount of cash it will have. There will be no major infusions as the next corporate tax day, the next major tax day is in September, which is already after the X date for the Treasury to zero out its cash balance is scheduled to arrive, which is sometime in early to mid-August, according to some estimates late July. We'll see exactly, but we'll see here we have $409 billion left. And on the bottom of here, you can see the $409 billion figure here of the Treasury's total cash balance. This was as of Wednesday, I believe. Yes, June 17th, because Thursday was Juneteenth, whatever that is. You can see this is the total amount of taxes that were infused into the Treasury on June 17th. It is a total of $18.837 billion. That's very, very little. So the major influx was on June 16th, which was corporate tax day. That is now over, and we have about $409 billion left to burn through. How long will that take? Well, we can see the next slide. On April 23rd, we had about $606 billion left in the Treasury. Now we had 332.9 billion as of June 11th, and now we have 409 billion. So there was an influx from 333, let's just say 333 billion at the bottom there on June 11th to 446 billion high mark on June 16th. So that's an influx of about $113 billion for corporate tax day, which is around where I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be $100 billion, maybe a little more, which is exactly where it turned out to be. So we have now about 7 to 9 weeks of cash left at $410 billion. At that point, they're going to have to raise the debt ceiling, and then we're going to see a war between the repo market, the overnight market, between banks and the Treasury, which will be fighting over the same dollars, and that will lead to, I think, the final QE and the final inflationary round for this fiat system is over. Next topic, will the Iran-Israel war bring the X date forward? Will it cause the Treasury to spend more money than it has without this war? Well, I asked Grok. This was just a simple mathematical question. I don't use AI often, but I didn't want to do the research on this, and this was much quicker. How much money, I asked Grok, has the U.S. spent moving its forces in and around the Middle East since the Iran-Israel war broke out? Grok says, based on the scale of assets involved, carriers, destroyers, jets, tankers, and 40,000 troops, the spending could easily be in the range of $100 to $500 million over the past week. This is a rough estimate. Historical operations like the 2023 surge to deter Iran after Hamas attacks cost billions over months, suggesting a similar trajectory if the conflict persists. So we're talking about an X date of August, which is about 7 to 9 weeks from now. Talking about maybe $500 million a week, maybe $1 billion a week. That's 7 to 9 weeks. It's like $7 to $9 billion. It's not going to be that big of a change. So I say probably not significantly. It won't bring the X date forward unless the U.S. gets directly involved in the war, which I hope and pray they will not, because I know that if they do, the hatred of Israel and Jews worldwide will escalate very quickly because nobody wants to be involved in any more Middle East war. If they're not in the Middle East, so stay out. Let's talk about Turkey. Continues to hyperinflate. Why am I talking about Turkey? Because there was some speculation there could be a fight between Israel and Turkey. No, there won't be. Turkey is not in any shape to do that, nor do they want to. This is a total crazy speculation. I think it was from the Middle East Eye. There was some kind of article about it. So I'm just responding and saying, no, it's not going to happen. We don't hate each other that much. We don't really like each other, but I'm not the governments don't really like each other, but there's still flights between the two countries, and nobody's in the mood for a big war between Turkey and Israel. So you can see Turkey's currency is still hyperinflating on the same hyperinflationary trajectory. The hockey stick turned at around 2020, 2021 over here. And continues to move up in a very Argentinian fashion, Venezuelan fashion. We're just below 40 per dollar right now, and it will continue this way. Turkish stocks are no shelter protecting from Turkish hyperinflation. We can see the two charts here. The blue is the dollar to lira exchange rate. The higher that is, the lower the lira is. And we can see since 2020, it's about 476%, just rounding it off to 500%, which it will be soon, maybe in a few weeks. The Turkish stock market is up about 22.8%, so Turks have lost a lot of purchasing power staying in stocks as their currency hyperinflates. The only answer when money is dying, when money derivatives are dying, you go into money itself, which is gold and silver. With gold, they would be not only preserving their purchasing power, but increasing it. Here we can see, in contrast to the lira, the shekel is actually strong. It's at its strongest mark versus the dollar since January 30th, 2023. The war has not really damaged the shekel much at all. In fact, it has strengthened it. I can only speculate that currency traders, the forex markets, believe that Israel is winning the war. I don't know exactly what that means, winning the war. I'm not a geopolitical war strategist or anything, but the general feeling in this country is that we're doing well. And hopefully, if the United States does not get involved, we can finish this up in a week or two. And by finish up, I mean get rid of the nuclear development program. We have no plans on invading Iran or invading anything, just getting rid of the threat. To Japan, Japanese bond yields still way above trend line. You can see how there's three trend lines here from 2023. The black trend line, which is the intermediate trend line, the blue trend line, which is the short-term trend line, and the red trend line, which is the very short-term trend line. I'm sure there's different words for these. I'm not a technical analyst, but all trend lines are intact very well. You can see that Japanese bond yields are heading higher, and the higher these head, the worse the Bank of Japan is doing. And when the Bank of Japan goes bankrupt, the yen collapses. So the higher bond yields go, the closer the yen is to collapse in real purchasing power terms. You can see that Japan core inflation, you can see this practically in empirical evidence here. We were at 3.3%. You can see in that little red rectangle there. This is from tradingeconomics.com. CPI, core, or whatever that is, in Japan increased to 3.3% in May. The last time we were at 3.3%, I marked here in this chart from Trading Economics, is March 1982. So Japan is at the highest inflation rate. It's not really inflation, they just call it that. It's just consumer prices rising. Since March 1982, the yen is in serious trouble. This is also obviously excluding the post-COVID era. So let me just qualify that: the highest inflation since the pre-COVID era, since 1982. Finally, we're going to talk about the gold run. It's still in a correction, or there is a high that has not been broken at 3,500 yet for about 6-7 weeks, it looks like. I don't know exactly, but about 2 months. This is very normal. This is what the rally has been since late 2023. The black boxes below are corrections. The blue boxes are advances. You can see that the black boxes carry the majority of the time since the rally began in 2024. The blue boxes are the minority of the time, and this is despite this being the strongest gold rally since the 1970s, and it will get stronger. But you can see here the black boxes are getting thinner over time as the rally continues, and the blue boxes are getting thicker, which means the corrections are getting shorter and the rallies are getting longer. This will continue until the dollar implodes, in my view. Even in 1979, more than half the year of the best year in gold prices in history, more than half of that year was corrections. The blue boxes are advances, the black boxes are corrections. You can see that the black boxes take up the majority of 1979, though as the year went on, the black boxes got thinner and the blue boxes got thicker. This final blue box does not take into account the move in early January, which led from 560 to 872 ultimately. So we see very similar patterns between this year and 1979. Corrections just like we saw in 1979, and advances just like we saw in 1979. There's nothing out of the ordinary here, and the rallies will continue. The corrections, I believe, will get shorter, and then finally the dollar will die once the next QE round begins. And the Fed has to inflate or die. It will choose to inflate and kill its own currency, and then they will abdicate and fly to some island somewhere in the Pacific where nobody will lynch them if there's enough fuel in the plane to get them to escape there. This is Rafi with the Endgame Investor with this week's Silver Report, brought to you by Quinney Silver, symbol KOOYF in the US, symbol KTN in Canada. And if you want to take your gold and silver and put it in a dirty man safe, hearing that nuclear war is about to break out, which I don't think it is, but dirty man safe is a good idea anyway, then use the code NGAME10 at checkout for 10% off. Link in the description below, and I'll see you guys next week, and hopefully the war will be over.
Charge your gun! Oh, right!